You're not going to believe what happened to me. I'm 72 years old. I've lived alone in the mountains for 15 years. And last winter, something found me that I still can't explain. My hands shake when I think about it. But I've got to tell someone. So here it is. My cabin sits 12 miles up an old logging road. Most people don't even know it exists anymore. I moved there after my husband died. The city was too loud, too many memories. Up here, it's just me. Wind through the pines, creek water over rocks, sometimes a deer in my yard. That's all I need. I've got chickens, a vegetable garden, enough firewood for any winter. Or so I thought. October that year was strange, too warm. By November, I was still picking tomatoes. Trees still had green leaves. The old-timers in town were different that year. They weren't joking about the warnings. Stock up early, they said. Get your firewood cut. Make sure your roof can hold heavy snow. I'd heard it before. But something was different. Their faces looked worried. Even the animals knew. Squirrels were frantic, burying nuts everywhere. Birds that should have left were still hanging around like they couldn't decide what to do. My chickens stayed close to the coop, making more noise than usual. By late November, I'd cut more firewood than ever. My root cellar was packed. Canned goods, preserved vegetables, extra supplies. Looking back, it's like my body knew something was coming. Something bigger than a normal winter. The temperature dropped fast. One Tuesday, it was warm enough for a light jacket. Wednesday morning, ice on the water bucket. The weather radio was talking about a storm system forming in the west, the kind they name, the kind they track like hurricanes. By December 3rd week, we'd had more snow than most winters see all year. I checked my supplies, stacked extra wood by the door, made sure the chicken coop was secure. But something felt different. The air pressure was dropping so fast my ears popped. The wind was coming from wrong directions, the kind that usually means tornado weather, not snow. Even my chickens knew. They stopped laying, stayed huddled together all day. My old bones ached in ways they never had before. The first snow came Monday evening. Tiny, hard flakes, like bits of ice. By Tuesday morning, 6 inches of the driest snow I'd ever seen. It didn't pack, just blew around like sand. Tuesday night, everything changed. Around 8 p.m., the wind picked up. By 9 o'clock, I couldn't see the chicken coop from my kitchen window. What had been steady became something alive, furious. The snow was moving horizontally, driven by winds over 60 miles per hour. Trees that had stood for decades bent like grass. The temperature was dropping fast. My thermometer went from 20 degrees at sunset to below zero by midnight. The fire was going full blast, but the house was getting cold. The power went out around 2 a.m. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Trees were cracking like gunshots. Something kept banging against the back wall. Sleep was impossible. Around 3 a.m., I heard something different. A rhythmic thumping, too regular, too purposeful. I grabbed a flashlight, checked every window. But the snow was so thick I couldn't see anything. By dawn, the storm had settled into a pattern. The wind would howl for minutes, then calm, then pick up even stronger. I managed to get the door open during one of the calm moments. The snow was already 3 feet deep, still falling hard. My truck was completely buried. The path to the chicken coop had vanished. Wednesday was worse. The snow came down so fast I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. The wind was constant. Endless howling. Around noon, the banging started again, this time on the front of the house near the door, rhythmic thumping, like something was trying to get in. I peered through the window. Nothing but swirling snow. By evening, I was worried about my supplies. I'd used more firewood than expected. If the storm lasted much longer, I'd have to start rationing heat. Wednesday night was a test of endurance. The storm had been going for over 24 hours. No sign of slowing down. I pulled my mattress into the main room close to the fireplace. The fire had to be fed every hour. I never got more than 40 or 50 minutes of sleep at a time. Around 10 p.m., I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was crying. Not the wind, not tree branches, but actual crying. Like a baby, but deeper, more resonant. The sound continued even during the brief moments when the wind died down. It was faint, but persistent. My first thought was a wild cat, but I'd never heard anything quite like this. There was something about it that was deeply distressing, a quality that seemed to reach right into my chest. It wasn't just an animal in distress. It was the sound of something young, helpless, terrified. The crying was clearer now, coming from right outside the house. Two distinct voices, both young, both in distress. I grabbed my flashlight and heavy coat. Common sense told me to stay inside. But something about that sound pulled at me. Pulled hard. I'd raised 3 children, helped with countless grandchildren. That instinct to respond to a baby's cry was too strong to ignore. The cold hit me like a physical blow when I opened the door. The wind tried to tear the flashlight right out of my hands. The snow was so thick I could barely breathe. But the crying was clearer now, coming from the side of the house, where the foundation meets the ground. I followed the sound, stepping carefully. The snow was past my knees, over my waist where it had drifted. The wind kept trying to push me off balance. When I got around to the side of the cabin, my flashlight beam caught something dark, huddled against the cold stone foundation. At first I thought it was a pile of branches. Then it moved. I was looking at something alive. There were 2 of them pressed together against the cold stone. They were small, maybe the size of 3-year-old children, but their proportions were all wrong. Their arms and legs were too long, their torsos too broad. They were covered in dark brown fur, matted stiff with ice crystals. But it was their faces that stopped me cold. They weren't quite human, weren't quite animal. Something in between. The bone structure was more human than ape, but different. Larger eye sockets, more pronounced brow ridge, flatter nose. Their eyes were enormous and dark. And when they looked up at me, I saw intelligence there. Not animal intelligence, something much deeper, much more complex.
They were dying. I could see that right away. Their breathing was shallow and labored, their bodies shaking violently. Ice had formed on their fur, their eyelashes, around their nostrils. Whatever they were just babies. And they were freezing to death against my house. I didn't think about what they might be, whether they could be dangerous. All I saw were 2 small creatures that desperately needed help. I pulled off my heavy coat and wrapped it around both of them. They didn't resist or try to run. If anything, they seemed to understand I was trying to help. They made soft whimpering sounds and pressed closer to my warmth. Their small hands clutched at my clothes. They had opposable thumbs, individual fingers. They were heavier than I expected, dense and solid. One was smaller than the other, maybe a year younger. It seemed weaker. The larger one kept making soft sounds to its companion, like it was trying to reassure it. Getting them inside was a struggle. The wind kept trying to push me off balance, both hands full. When I finally got the door open and stumbled inside, the difference was overwhelming. The creatures in my arms felt it immediately. Their shivering intensified at first, like their bodies were shocked by the change in temperature, then gradually began to ease. I set them down in front of the fireplace and wrapped them in every blanket I could find. Their fur was so cold, like touching ice. I built up the fire as much as I dared, moved them as close as possible without risking burns. They seemed to understand what fire was. They didn't try to touch it, but they pressed as close as they could get, held their hands out toward the warmth. I warmed some milk on the wood stove. When I offered it to them, they looked at the cup with obvious intelligence. The larger one reached out tentatively. touched the cup, pulled its hand back. Testing the temperature, finding it acceptable, it took the cup in both hands and drank slowly, watching me over the rim with those enormous dark eyes. The smaller one was more hesitant. The larger one made soft sounds to it, a kind of gentle crooning, encouragement. Finally, the smaller one accepted its own cup and drank. When they had eaten enough, they huddled together near the fire and seemed to relax for the first time. Their shivering had stopped. Their breathing was deeper and more regular. The smaller one actually fell asleep, curled against its companion's side. I didn't sleep at all that first night. I kept the fire going and watched them breathe, making sure they were getting warmer, stronger. Part of me was terrified. What were these things? Where had they come from? But mostly I just felt protective. They were so small and vulnerable, so close to death when I found them. Around dawn, their condition had improved dramatically, no longer shivering. Their fur had dried out and fluffed up. They seemed stronger, more alert, more curious. The larger one got up and began exploring the cabin, moving carefully and touching things gently. It seemed particularly interested in my books, running its fingers over the covers, opening them to look at the pages. When it found a small hand mirror on my dresser, both of them were fascinated. They touched the glass gently, then looked behind the mirror to see where the images were coming from. Their intelligence was undeniable. They were thinking, reasoning beings. The creatures settled into a routine with surprising ease. They helped me tend the fire, bringing me small pieces of wood from the pile by the door. They watched everything I did with intense concentration. The smaller one was shyer but more affectionate. It would sit close to me while I worked. The larger one was more independent and curious, always exploring something new. By Thursday evening, it felt natural having them there. Their presence was comforting rather than frightening. Friday morning, I woke up to an unusual silence. The storm hadn't stopped completely, but the wind had died down. The creatures seemed to sense the change immediately. They went to the windows and looked out at the snow-covered landscape, then back at me, then at the door. For the first time since I'd brought them inside, they seemed restless, even agitated. I bundled up and went outside to assess the damage. The creatures followed me to the door, but wouldn't step outside. They stood in the doorway, sniffing the air and making soft sounds to each other. There was an urgency to their behavior that made me nervous. I found the tracks while checking on my chickens. Enormous tracks, 18 inches long, 8 inches wide. They looked almost human, but with much longer toes and claw marks at the tips. The stride length was incredible, suggesting something much taller and more powerful than any human. The tracks came from deep in the forest, wound around my house several times, then headed back into the woods. My heart started beating faster as the implications sank in. These tracks belonged to the family of the creatures I'd rescued. Parents, siblings, maybe an entire group had come looking for the missing babies. They'd found the house where their children were being sheltered, confirmed they were safe, and then retreated to wait. I looked back at the two small faces watching me from the doorway. They were making new sounds, not quite whimpering, not quite calling either. Their whole bodies were tense with anticipation. They kept looking toward the woods where the tracks disappeared. The larger one came outside for the first time, stepping carefully in the deep snow, but moving with obvious purpose toward the edge of the forest. It stopped about 20 feet from the house and made a series of calls, louder than any sounds I'd heard from either of them before. From somewhere deep in the woods came an answering call, low and resonant, unmistakably similar to what the young one had made, but much deeper, much more powerful. The smaller creature joined its companion outside. Both of them began making excited sounds toward the woods. They were talking to their family, I realized, letting them know they were alive and well, explaining what had happened to them. The sounds from the forest grew closer and more numerous. What had started as distant calls became a complex conversation, involving multiple voices of different pitches and tones. I could hear movement in the woods now, the sound of large bodies pushing through snow and undergrowth. Branches were breaking, snow was falling from disturbed pine boughs. Whatever was out there, there were a lot of them, and they were big. The two young creatures became more and more excited as their family approached. They were practically dancing in the snow, making joyful sounds, gesturing toward the house, toward me, toward the woods. Then I saw the first adult. It stepped out from behind a massive pine tree about 50 yards away. Even at that distance, its size was overwhelming. It had to be 8 feet tall at least, with shoulders broader than any human I'd ever seen. It looked directly at me and went perfectly still, studying me with obvious intelligence. More adults appeared between the trees. They moved silently despite their size, positioning themselves in a loose circle around my property. It was clearly a coordinated effort. The largest one, obviously the leader, stepped forward, maybe 9 feet tall, with scars across its chest and arms that spoke of a long and dangerous life. It approached slowly and deliberately, each step clearly calculated. Never took its eyes off me. When the leader was about 20 feet away, it stopped and made a sound I'll never forget. A deep, rumbling vocalization that seemed to come from its chest rather than its throat. The two young creatures responded immediately. They began making rapid, excited sounds, gesturing toward me, toward the house, toward themselves. They were telling their story, explaining how they'd been caught in the storm, how I'd found them and brought them inside, how I'd fed them and kept them warm. The leader listened without interrupting, processing the information, trying to understand the relationship between its children and this strange human who had sheltered them. When they were done, it looked back and forth between them and me several times, processing the information, coming to some kind of decision. Then something remarkable happened. The larger young creature ran back to me and took my hand. It led me forward a few steps, then gestured toward its family leader while making soft musical sounds. I understood what it was doing. It was introducing me, vouching for me, making it clear that I was a friend rather than a threat. The smaller one joined us, taking my other hand, adding its own voice to the introduction. The leader's expression began to change. The wariness didn't disappear completely, but it was joined by something that might have been gratitude or respect. It looked at its children, both obviously healthy and unharmed despite their ordeal, then back at me, slowly, deliberately. The massive creature lowered its head toward me. It wasn't quite a bow, but it was definitely a gesture of acknowledgement and respect. One by one, every other adult in the group did the same thing. A dozen enormous heads lowering in my direction. A moment of recognition that transcended species boundaries. After that, the leader called its children forward. They looked back at me with obvious reluctance, making sounds that seemed like attempts to explain or apologize for having to leave. I knelt down in the snow and let them approach me one last time. The smaller one pressed against me briefly, making a soft sound that could only be described as affectionate. The larger one touched my face gently with one hand, then made a complex series of sounds that felt like a thank you. I tried to speak to them, tell them how much it had meant to help them. I don't think they understood my words, but they seemed to understand my tone and intent. Both of them touched my hands one final time before stepping back toward their family. The leader made a low sound. Immediately, the entire group began moving toward the forest. The young ones stayed close to their parents, but they kept looking back at me until the trees blocked them from view. Within minutes, they had vanished completely. The forest swallowed them up as if they had never been there at all. Years have passed now, I'll have to leave this mountain soon. My aging body needs medical care and daily assistance. I'll move to a small apartment in town. It will be comfortable and safe, but it won't be home. The life I've lived here, the relationship we've shared, it's been the greatest privilege of my existence. To be trusted by beings who have every reason to fear and avoid humans. To be accepted as family by a species not my own. I can't imagine a greater honor. Do you believe in what you didn't expect to find? Share this story. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done? Don't miss the next encounter. Subscribe now.